Why is it that saying no feels so difficult sometimes? Ever found yourself agreeing to something even though every part of you wanted to decline? Maybe it was a friend asking for a favor, or your boss piling on yet another task. You knew you were stretched too thin, but somehow the word no just wouldn't come out. And then you end up feeling overwhelmed, stressed, and maybe even a little resentful. Does that sound familiar? Yeah, it happens to all of us. The struggle is real. But what if there was a way to turn this around? What if you could master the art of saying no confidently, without feeling guilty or afraid of letting others down? If that idea piques your interest, then stick around. In this video, we're diving into the secrets of setting boundaries like a pro. These aren't just any tips. These are game changers that can help you reclaim your time, energy, and peace of mind. Let's dive into how to master the art of saying no. 10 tips for setting boundaries. First, a quick reality check. Setting boundaries isn't about being selfish or uncaring. It's about respecting yourself and your limits, so you can show up fully and authentically for the things that truly matter. Now, let's get into those tips. Tip number 1. Understand the importance of boundaries. Boundaries are like the invisible fences that protect your time, energy, and mental health. Without them, it's easy to get overwhelmed, stressed, and burnt out. Think of boundaries as a way to maintain your own well-being while still being there for others. They're not walls. They're bridges to healthier relationships and a more balanced life. So the next time someone asks you for something, take a moment to consider your own needs first. Remember, setting a boundary isn't about pushing people away. It's about making sure you're able to give your best when you do say yes. And speaking of saying yes, that brings us to our next point. Tip number 2. Reflect on the consequences of saying yes. Here's the thing. Every yes comes with a cost. It might be your time, your energy, or your peace of mind. Before agreeing to something, think about what you're sacrificing. Is saying yes to this request going to mean saying no to something more important? Imagine agreeing to help a friend move on the only free weekend you've had in months. That yes might mean saying no to rest, relaxation, or spending quality time with loved ones. So before you agree, pause and ask yourself, what's the real cost here? And sometimes, the cost isn't just what you give up, but also how you're being persuaded in the first place, which leads us to the next tip. Tip number 3. Learn to recognize manipulation. We've all been there. Someone turns on the charm, piles on the guilt, or applies just enough pressure to make us feel like we have no choice but to say yes. It's sneaky, right? But once you start recognizing these tactics, you can defend against them. For example, if a coworker says, "You're the only one who can help me with this," take a moment to assess if that's really true, or if they're just trying to offload work. When you see manipulation for what it is, it's much easier to stand firm and protect your boundaries. Remember, your time and energy are precious. Don't let anyone guilt you into spending them unwisely. But even when you recognize manipulation, saying no can still be tough, which brings us to the next tip. Tip number 4. Acknowledge the difficulty of saying no. Let's be real, saying no isn't easy. It's uncomfortable, it's awkward, and it can feel downright scary. Why? Because most of us are conditioned to avoid conflict, rejection, and disappointing others. But here's a little secret. It's okay to find it hard. In fact, acknowledging the difficulty can actually make it easier. When you accept that saying no is tough, you give yourself permission to feel those uncomfortable emotions without being ruled by them. So, the next time you need to decline, remind yourself that it's okay to feel a little nervous. It's a sign you're doing something important for your well-being. And, like any skill, it gets easier with practice, which brings us smoothly into our next tip. Tip number 5. Practice saying no. Like any skill, saying no gets easier with practice. Start small, maybe with less significant requests, and gradually work your way up to the bigger, more challenging ones. You might even try role-playing different scenarios with a friend. The more you practice, the more confident you'll become. And soon, saying no will feel like second nature. Picture it as building a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. And as that confidence grows, so will your ability to set boundaries in any situation. But what about those pesky emotions that bubble up when we say no? Let's tackle that next. Tip number 6. Understand and manage your emotions. Have you ever noticed that a simple no can stir up a whole bunch of emotions? Guilt, fear, discomfort. It's all part of the package. But here's the thing. Those emotions don't have to control your decisions. By becoming aware of what you're feeling, you can manage those emotions and make choices that truly align with your needs. Next time you're about to say no, take a deep breath and check in with yourself. What are you really feeling? By acknowledging and understanding your emotions, you'll find it easier to stick to your boundaries. But sometimes, even with all the right emotions in check, saying no still feels harsh. That's where our next tip comes in. Tip number 7, offer alternatives when appropriate. Sometimes, saying no doesn't have to be absolute. You can soften the blow by offering an alternative. For example, if someone asks you to work late, you might say, "I can't stay late today, but I'm happy to help out first thing tomorrow." This way, you're still setting a boundary while showing willingness to help on your terms. It's a win-win situation. So, the next time you're faced with a tough request, consider if there's a compromise that works for both of you. And speaking of what works for you, let's not forget the importance of knowing what really matters to you. Tip number 8, prioritize your values and goals. Here's a powerful way to make saying no easier. Know what truly matters to you. When you're clear on your values and goals, it's much easier to see when a request doesn't align with them. For example, if family time is your top priority, it's easier to decline work that cuts into that time. So take some time to reflect on what's really important to you. This clarity will make it much simpler to say no to things that don't serve your bigger picture. And when it's time to say no, sometimes simplicity is key, which leads us to our next tip. Tip number 9, use simple and clear language. When saying no, keep it simple and direct. There's no need to over-explain or justify your decision. In fact, over-explaining can sometimes lead to more pressure to say yes. A simple, "I'm sorry, I can't do that," is often enough. By being clear and concise, you make it harder for others to push back against your decision. So, the next time you're tempted to give a lengthy explanation, remember, less is more. And finally, to make all of this even easier, let's talk about building genuine connections. Tip number 10, build genuine connections. Here's something that might surprise you. People are more likely to respect your boundaries when they feel a genuine connection with you. It's not just about saying no, it's about building relationships based on mutual respect and understanding. When people know you care about them, they're more likely to accept your no without hard feelings. So, focus on creating strong, authentic connections with the people around you. When those relationships are built on trust and respect, setting boundaries becomes much easier. So there you have it. 10 powerful tips to help you master the art of saying no and set boundaries that protect your time, energy, and well-being. Remember, setting boundaries isn't about being selfish. It's about taking care of yourself so you can show up fully for the things that truly matter. If you found these tips helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. What's the most challenging situation you faced when trying to say no? Share your stories in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.